Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We are starting a new week, which means a new theme, and this week's theme is excellent orchestral use. It's not, a theme that really rolls off the tongue. It doesn't have any sort of alliteration to it. I don't think it's a strong theme name, but it is to the point and self-explanatory. We are going to be looking at non-classical music that utilizes orchestras or orchestral elements well. I've talked a bit about this in the past before with bands that might use strings or brass just to kind of widen the sound or have more of that royal-esque sound to it, more of a texture thing than really utilizing those instruments to their fullest extent and utilizing those timbres in ways that can amplify a music rather than just sounding wider or sounding more regal or whatever. So we're going to be looking at bands that really know how to use strings and brass and large percussion sections if that is what they choose to do. Today we're going to start off with a band whose name I always forget whenever I think of orchestral metal. I tend to think of Flesh God, and I never remember Dimmu Borgir, and I should. I went back and checked their other track out, and it was just phenomenal. So today we're going to be checking out Dimmu Borgir's song Dimmu Borgir live in Wacken in 2012, where they had a full orchestra with them. So let's dig into this. Let's see what's up. Oh,
this next one's about strength, unity, and an everlasting flame.
Yeah, really cool rhythmic synergy between the choir and the vocalist. Yeah, flute trills, we got nice violin slides. Yeah, really utilizing the orchestra itself to enable more depth into the chordal structure that are going on. Yeah, so the halftime with the choir plus the spoken voice really gives more weight to the words that he's saying. So it's kind of interesting. This is the inverse of what I was talking about earlier, where the electric guitars are really used to give texture to an otherwise orchestral sound with orchestral composition. and the orchestra plenty of space to do what they do best. Beautiful violin run there. Drummer's just going wild.
Fuck yeah! Thank you so much.
All right. So before we get into this, I do want to say that I am just a little disappointed in the mix. I don't know if it's because it was live. It seemed to be some sort of professional rendition of or professional production of the live performance. But the audio was just not there. The guitars were heavily pushed into the mix. A lot of the less prominent orchestral elements, the strings, very prevalent. Your percussion, French horns, flutes. I mean, there was maybe one flute trill, maybe two flute trills I heard, and they were definitely higher pitched. I didn't hear the flute at all, other than that. The guitars, like I said, they were buried. There's just so many elements. Mostly what I heard in this recording was the vocalist, the drums, and the strings, and the choir. Those four, either it had to do with the compression to put it on the DVD or whatever, or maybe it was YouTube's compression, maybe it was just a poor mix. Maybe the dude running the audio didn't know how to mix a full orchestra. Maybe this is what they wanted. Maybe this is just the intended sounds. I'm not sure what led to this, but there's so many instruments that were hidden, and I think it's a shame when I can see them. I can see them playing, and I specifically look for that timbre, that tone, that sound, and it's just not present. It goes for so many instruments. The keyboardist, I didn't even know there was a keyboardist. He showed up a couple times. I'm like, wow, there's a keyboardist in here. Why don't I sound? Why don't I hear anything synthy or samples or piano? Just something. um, it's just a real shame that I missed on a lot of the nuance here, because unfortunately, what we end up hearing is a lot of violin sweeps and chordal work, And that kind of just leans into what I was talking about earlier, where you're utilizing these sounds for the epicness of it. And the song does sound epic. I don't want to take that away from them. But there's just so much that I was missing. Um, if the video wasn't here, I would have assumed this was a guy on drum kit, primarily because of those bass kicks. The vocalist, strings and a choir. I really didn't hear anything else. And that's just such a shame because, like I said, those parts, I feel like that's where a lot of the strong orchestral sound comes from. It's what makes them sound orchestral. It has that strength, the epicness, the regalness of the orchestra sound, um, mixing with the metal elements in the drum kit. And I guess there were a couple of times when the guitar got a bit in the mix, but it was mostly during solos. We didn't really get to hear them too much otherwise. And so what ends up being is this song that sounds like what I imagine most bands think of when I say metal with an orchestra, and it's really missing those small little flourishes that the lesser important instruments are really adding to the table. And I feel like there's just so much song here on paper that just did not come through in the audio. And I could talk about this for hours. It's frustrating to see so many cool parts. I'm watching their fingers move. I might not know exactly what notes are being hit, but I can kind of feel a rhythm. I can see the rhythm and I can kind of feel, about what they're doing, given the context, what the other instruments are playing. I just can't hear it. And this looks like exactly what I want in this week. I want bands, rock bands, metal bands, jazz bands, pop stars, I don't care. Non orchestra based music utilizing an orchestra or orchestral instruments, um, in ways that they are traditionally used in classical, not ways that we typically use them when we borrow them for these genres. And it looks like they're doing that here. The orchestral part looks to be written with classical writing nuance, where the instruments like your French horns, your clarinets, your flutes are providing these much needed little bits of complexity to your otherwise strong melody lines that your trumpets and your violins, that they're going to be presenting. And it just did not come through, and it is just very frustrating. I may end up seeing if there is another version of this and listening to it on my own and seeing if I can't pull out any more of the instrumental work in the mix. But yeah, this looks like the exact song I would want for this week. But the audio is just sadly not there. So, yeah. But let's talk about what I did here. There are some phenomenal string flourishes. Um, I mentioned the what was it? Oh, the flute trills. There's the choir that provided. At the beginning, I said that it was interesting because the choir was doing a specific rhythmic pattern, holding out notes a little longer against the harsher, more rhythmic vocals in the lead vocalist. And I really enjoyed that contrast. And they dug into that quite a few times. I thought it was genius to utilize the same instrument type, the vocals, even though they're wildly different timbres, and utilizing them to provide context against each other, not just in the tone and presentation of the vocal utility. He had that harsh, almost spoken word format, and they were singing, clear, full throat, chest stuff, but also using a bit of rhythmic complexity between the two to create some contrast as well. Just really cool. how often that popped up. Even we could say the width. I mean, it's a choir, they're going to be wider, there's more than one vocalist, but even just having that width contrast, it was just really cool to see how they could utilize two different sets of vocals in two different ways to elevate both of them. It's just really smart composition right there. I loved the moments where they gave the strings some lead melody lines. The vocals, as I mentioned, were heavily rhythmic. They didn't really move around too much with pitch. So saying we wouldn't typically say that the vocalist here was providing the melody lines. A lot of that was coming from the strings. And I just thought it was really nice how they found ways to implement them against both the vocals, which were taking the spotlight because they do provide the vocal aspect. And then also contrasting that with what was going on in the guitars, which are typically what would be your lead uh, melody and harmony instruments in a traditional metal setup. So yeah, just kind of hearing some of that contrasting right there, just really good. I don't know who composed this, and I'm interested in how this song came about. I don't know if Dimmu always writes with an orchestra in mind. Maybe they wrote this song with an orchestra in mind. I'm not sure how that went about. Um, or if possibly this was written a certain way and then maybe enhanced later with another composer for this specific live set. But just the way that the band and the orchestra work off of each other to elevate each other's parts and to provide both contrast and synergy is just phenomenal. There is a huge understanding of how music works both in the metal genre and in the classical genre, and how to best utilize the standard tools that most people use when writing both of those genres and interweaving them into a single cohesive piece of symphonic metal, orchestral metal. I don't know how you would classify this, but the way that they found to really weave both of these ideas together into a strong song that just showcases the strengths of both metal and classical writing is just phenomenal. Now, I will say that the song itself was, if the orchestra wasn't there, I don't know if I would be as interested. So again, I'm kind of curious how this song came to be. Is it always with an orchestra? Did they create it with that in mind? Do they tour with an orchestra, or is this a one-time thing, sort of like Symphony and Metallica? I guess I just have a lot of questions about how the orchestra works with Dimmu Borgir, because this is the second song I've heard of theirs with an orchestra in it. So yeah, and also who composes this stuff? Because, like I said, there's such a strong understanding of both sides. I'm not sure too many classical composers would be able to blend in so many metal aspects into their compositions without. I mean, obviously, anybody can research another genre and learn how to blend it, but there seems to be just this understanding, this previous understanding of both sides. And it's almost like either a classical composer grew up on metal and went to school for classical composition, or a metal guy made a metal band, but his parents put him through, piano at an early age, and he got interested into classical writing from there. There's definitely a person who is passionate about both sides that I believe is at the core of this writing. It isn't something like, one person being introduced to this concept of merging the genres and being really strong in one and having to research the other for this project. It does feel like a passion project from somebody who just has a ton of passion for both sides. Like I said, there's just this really strong interweaving between metal and classical elements, and it is just gorgeous. I love it. Um, so yeah, I have a lot of questions about like I said, the classical elements in their songs and how they get composed, how they get written, and stuff like that, and who composes the music. I wish I had more to talk about, because I really could see we have a full orchestra. All right, even if I only gave each instrument group 3 or 4 minutes, I'd be here for 45 minutes just talking about how all the different instruments fit in to the song itself. You know, the French horns and the strings, the cellos, the tubas, the vast percussion element. I saw chimes. I'm pretty sure I saw xylophones. Might have even been a timpani if I can remember correctly. Um, but I mean, unfortunately, a lot of it just got washed out in the audio, and I can really only talk about some of the more surface elements, which happen to be, you know, what we've already gone over, the strings and the choir versus the guitars and the vocals. I do just want to give a quick shout out to the drummer. Like I said earlier, when the song was playing, just killing it with those double bass kicks, and you know, just a real beast, a machine for sure. So I do think I'm going to find another version of this. If I find one that actually has strong mix to it and you can hear all the instruments, I'll post it on YouTube and probably the Discord, probably, you know, Twitter, just kind of put it everywhere. Maybe try to start a small discussion about it. I don't know if I would make another video, but also if anybody has any links to some Dimmu Borgir videos with the orchestra with just very clean audio engineering, hit me up with that, please. Like I said, I can see some strong composition going on. I just can't hear it in this video at least. But those are my thoughts on Dimmu Borgir's Dimmu Borgir. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed it or not. And, you know, again, if you have any links for more songs from them. Above the comment section is a description box. We got links in there for all sorts of stuff. Patreon, Discord, Twitter. Special selection is open again. Instructions in there if you'd like to get a song specifically requested for the channel. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with yet another great orchestral use song. And until then, remember to be critical, not cynical with the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.